Hello, I'm sorry I can't be with you in Seattle. My name is Charmian Gooch and I'm one of 3 co-founders and directors of the international campaign organisation Global Witness. For the last 20 years we've been investigating and campaigning around that connection between war, corruption, resources, environment and human rights. And today I'd like to talk to you about a problem. It's a very simple yet devastating problem. It's one that affects us all, and yet very few people know much about it. It is the problem of anonymously owned companies. These are companies where it's almost impossible, sometimes completely impossible, to find out who really owns and profits from these companies. So I'd like to give you a couple of examples. One of them is from a few years ago. Back between 2005 and 2009, 2 fraudsters set up a company and used it to scam the US military in Afghanistan. So, what were they doing? Well, they were supplying food and water at massively inflated costs, sometimes over 60% true costs, to the US military in Afghanistan. In doing this, they made nearly $50 million. And this only came to light because of a whistleblower. God bless whistleblowers. Now, this did result in a court case and some pretty substantial fines. But without that whistleblower, nobody would have ever known about this issue and this problem. In another example, a company in Oregon set up to sell polio vaccines to the Ukrainian government. But they did this at almost double the cost price of those polio vaccines. And that's particularly devastating because the Ukraine is a country with lower polio vaccination levels. And it's further dealing with a lot of instability and people moving around the country because of the conflict, which heightens the risk for Ukrainian children of contracting polio. Now, in the end, a US court did make the company repay $60 million to the Ukrainian government. Now, there are lots and lots of examples like this, sadly, and we put them together on a map website that you can Google. It's called The Great Ripoff. And on that, there are examples of similar cases from around the world. And when you first look at them, you might wonder what they all have in common. But they do have one thing in common. It's that people are using anonymous companies to hide their traces and hide their tracks when they commit these crimes. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because what I've seen over the years in my work and investigations is how the problem of corruption is enabled by this unquestioning acceptance of secrecy in business. And it is this unquestioning acceptance that is allowing criminals to get away with all manners of crimes. So, this may all seem very remote to you in your work and your commitment to sustainable purchasing. But here's the thing. It isn't remote at all, because I've seen in other contexts the power that you've brought to issues like sweatshops and supply chains. And by leveraging the immense buying power of institutional purchasers, you can help tackle the problem of criminals using these legal smokescreens to cover their tracks. Because by insisting that suppliers are transparent about who really owns and profits from their companies, you can not only tackle this, but you can also help reduce risk and fraud and other abuses. And here's the thing. Globally, this has finally become an issue. This to date unquestioned acceptance of secrecy in business, which is seen as the business norm, is finally being tackled. Hundreds of campaign groups and civil society organisations from around the world have come together to tackle this problem because they see at first hand what it's doing to their populations, their citizens. The European Union governments have also come together to tackle this problem. They're putting laws in place, and some of them are going out ahead of that and are creating public registries, which means that anyone can find out who really owns and controls a company. So that sounds great. But we're not there yet. This is not yet global. And we need your help. The immense leveraging and buying power of institutional purchasers could make a massive difference on this issue. You really could help create change. Because, after all, who needs anonymous companies? We just don't need them. They do untold damage to society, and it really is possible to change this situation. So please, join me on this issue and help. Thank you.